The royal walls are whispering again, this time with the sound of a seal being removed, a lineage questioned, and a throne trembling under the weight of truth. What began as a quiet adjustment in the royal archives has erupted into a full-blown constitutional rift. Prince Edward, once considered the quietest of the Windsors, has carried out an act so deliberate and damning that it may redefine the monarchy's chain of command, and at the center of it all is Camilla. It began with a single whisper from the restricted corridors of the royal archives. An anonymous report that a seal, once affixed to documents classified under Heritage Codex C, had been ceremoniously removed. This seal, bearing the distinctive insignia of Queen Camilla, had been added during the early days of her formal elevation. But now those decades-old documents were being re-examined, rewritten, and stripped of her emblem. What might have seemed a bureaucratic adjustment revealed far deeper implications. Confidential briefings named Prince Edward as the one who ordered the seal's removal directly, unequivocally, and without consulting the Queen Consort's office, igniting chaos behind palace walls. Camilla's senior aides, caught off guard, scrambled for clarity, sending private emails demanding legal standing and justification. Yet insiders were clear, this was no clerical revision. One senior archivist described it as political disarmament disguised as a procedural edit. With no royal decree issued and no public statement made, the monarchy remained silent, letting the act reverberate through tension-filled corridors, a silence many suspect was calculated. By removing the symbol, Prince Edward hadn't merely altered a mark, he had undermined the legitimacy it once secured. Speculation immediately turned to motive. Why now? Why Edward? Whispers hinted at a sealed mandate, a classified protocol allegedly authorized years ago and reserved for revising hasty posthumous designations. Though unverified, its invocation might explain the timing of this seismic move. The confidence behind Edward's actions has sent shockwaves through the royal household. According to insiders, the documents targeted held significance far beyond ceremonial recognition, cementing Camilla's symbolic control over historical reinterpretations, including titles, estate transitions, and archival curations once reserved for bloodline royals. Removing her seal wasn't just erasing a name, it was erasing her claim, an audacity that stunned even those closest to the Queen. Yet no formal rebuke followed. The royal household appeared frozen, senior members locked in a quiet standoff as dust refused to settle. Edward has neither denied nor confirmed his involvement, but the palace's silence speaks volumes. Loyalties are shifting, alliances forming, and the balance of power teetering. The ever-beautiful son, once the supportive younger brother, has emerged as the architect of a bold recalibration, a move years in the making, and whispers suggest it is only the beginning of a deeper royal cleansing. How did Prince Edward, a man of reserve and quiet duty, come to such an aggressive gesture against the Queen Consort? Overshadowed by his brothers and underestimated by the press, his ceremonial role belied a calculated, loyal network intertwined with the crown's oldest secrets. For years, he was the silent force behind the curtain, the keeper of traditions, steward of legacy, quietly building trust with royal archivists, historians, and protocol officers whose loyalty shifted decisively in his favor. Among his closest allies were Princess and guardian of continuity, and the shrewd Duke of Kent, whose dynastic knowledge proved invaluable. Together, they formed a preservation bloc, monitoring changes made in the name of modernization. As Camilla's seal spread across archival designations and heritage titles, Edward's patience frayed. A letter sealed decades ago by Prince Philip, entrusted to Edward alone, reportedly contained a chilling warning. Preserve the bloodline, protect the crown from being redrawn. From that moment, Edward's mission shifted from passive to prophetic. His initial cordial meetings with royal historians turned investigative. Record entries were amended under Camilla's advisement, and corrupted entry became a rallying cry behind locked archival doors. Edward's silence in past family crises, Harry stepping down, Andrew's disgrace, Charles and Camilla's ascension, was now revealed as strategic calculation. Removing Camilla's seal was no isolated gesture. It was the culmination of a decades-long defense plan for the monarchy's integrity, a deliberate and precise assertion of authority that transformed Edward from the passive prince into the monarchy's last quiet protector. Beneath Windsor's vaults, the documents she had marked were once untouchable. Her seal was more than symbolic, it was legitimacy itself. Its removal has unthreaded decades of curated royal narrative, challenging both protocol and history, and signalling a subtle but profound recalibration of power at the heart of the crown. The documents Edward targeted were more than records. They were instruments of power, narrative, and ownership. Among them, the Clarence House Codex, detailing estate redistributions after Queen Elizabeth, held particular weight, alongside the heir's decree of consolidation, mapping hereditary duties and patronage networks, and sealed correspondences tied to the late Queen's final legacy handovers. Each bore Camilla's ornate lavender-edged seal, introduced subtly after her formal recognition as Queen Consort, quietly accepted into the Royal Trust records as a ceremonial extension of her role. Now, however, Edward had removed them all, erasing the thin thread of legitimacy on which Camilla's historical footprint relied. His action was more than symbolic. By targeting these entries, he effectively severed her claim to historical authorship, denying her the right to rewrite Windsor's inherited truths. Legal experts, discreetly summoned, concluded that Camilla's seal may never have been officially recognized by the Crown Chamber No Registry. No signed decree applied retroactively to older documents by aides loyal to her during the transitional chaos after Queen Elizabeth's death. The implications were staggering. Directives bearing her symbol could be declared void, potentially reopening estates, titles, and ceremonial assignments that bypassed traditional bloodline structures. What had appeared as mere archival dust now revealed a hidden web of influence, positioning Camilla as a keeper of the past as well as a partner of the present, and Edward's move threatened to burn it all down. Questions whispered through palace corridors. Who permitted her seal? Was it oversight or orchestration? And which records had been reshaped under her name? Edward's erasure was revolutionary, yet within the palace, the silence began to crack. Camilla, blindsided but unyielding, mobilized her inner circle, summoning former advisors, publicists, and royal trustees to demand revalidation of her position. Her fury was as personal as it was institutional. A woman crowned beside Charles now found herself erased by a man she scarcely perceived as a threat. Urgently, she convened her private secretaries at Clarence House, insisting that the insignia had been approved in spirit, if not in script, and sought to invoke the rarely used urgency protocol clause, reserved for succession emergencies rather than archival disputes. But this was never about parchment, it was about power. Yet as she advanced, a quiet vacuum formed. Charles, caught off guard, remained publicly composed but privately torn, while the royal household offered no formal support, leaving Camilla adrift. Tensions soon escalated behind the scenes with Princess and the long silent sentinel of Windsor's inheritance corridors, now drawn into the widening conflict as the palace's fragile equilibrium began to fracture. Camilla's demand to reassert her seal was seen by Princess, and as a direct violation of legacy boundaries. An internal memo from the Princess Royal's office reaffirmed the inviolability of historically designated custodianship. Though it did not name Camilla, the message was unmistakable. The divide was no longer discreet, but strategic, and Camilla was losing ground. The blow came unexpectedly when the Royal Collection Trust, long neutral in palace politics, quietly removed her name from 3 curatorial initiatives without public explanation. Her spokesperson declined to comment, but the message landed like thunder. Institutions were stepping back, and her grip was slipping. Press leaks followed, hinting that Edward's actions were rogue, defiant of palace hierarchy, perhaps even sinister. Insiders revealed these were traced to Camilla's media allies, attempting to frame Edward's move as insurrection rather than preservation of legacy. Yet Edward's resolve remained shielded by silence, for he was not acting alone. Standing silently behind him was Princess and the monarchy's keeper of codes, long unseen but unyielding, who had provided the ancient justification allowing Edward to act. And, inheritor of the crown's secret protocol Clarion from Prince Philip, had invoked the Legacy Buffer Protocol, a mechanism designed to prevent overreach into symbolic realms and preserve archival integrity. This was not spectacle but precision. Edward's removal of Camilla's seal was sanctioned, rooted in a forgotten clause of the Windsor Memoranda of 1947, triggered only when the monarchy's archival legitimacy was threatened. Anne's disdain for Camilla's assertiveness in ceremonial hierarchy was no secret. Their private clashes had grown icy, while Edward, echoing Anne's vision, stepped into a broader role, reclaiming spaces long ceded to modern compromise. Together, they quietly became the palace's guardians of order, exercising constitutional mastery rather than confrontation. Yet while and preserved the past, another figure, long silent but vigilant, prepared to step into the light: Catherine, Princess of Wales. observing every move as the seal crisis escalated. She finally intervened, not with accusation, but icy clarity. At a children's hospice charity event, when asked about the archival dispute, she said, "Truth often reveals itself when history is handled with care, a signal laden with meaning." Internal sources confirmed Catherine had met privately with Edward and days before the seal's removal, offering strategic guidance, her support deliberate, measured, and devastatingly effective. Over the years, she had cultivated influence among the younger palace generation archivists, protocol officers, and curators who now viewed her not merely as a future queen, but as a guardian of the monarchy's soul, quietly steering events with calculated foresight. Catherine's steadfast adherence to tradition, her composure, and her insistence on transparency had made her a symbolic compass within the palace. And as the seal controversy unfolded, insiders looked to her not for orders, but for reassurance that royal conscience guided the unfolding events, and she provided it. Her most chilling move was the subtle invocation of Prince George, the so-called heir protector. Even as a child, his symbolic role as future sovereign became a tool of messaging. Catherine made it clear in private conversations that George's legacy must be built on truth, not convenience, sending an implicit warning that any manipulation of the past under Camilla's patronage would not survive the next generation. Camilla, enraged, reportedly described Catherine's comment as a calculated betrayal disguised as grace. For years, an uneasy peace had existed between the two women, polite in public, cautious in private. But that veil was now torn. Catherine had not merely aligned with Edward. She had validated the removal of Camilla's power, choosing legacy over loyalty and truth over tradition. She made no further statements. The moment had passed, yet the damage was done. The Queen Consort found herself isolated, the king silent, and the palace spinning under the weight of an unspoken realignment. Catherine's poised intervention reinforced Edward's cause, amplified Anne's authority, and weakened Camilla's hold on history, leaving the monarchy's next steps uncertain. All eyes turned to the one man who had not spoken, King Charles. Caught between his roles as monarch and husband, Charles faced a dilemma where every decision risked alienating either his bloodline or his chosen queen. Behind the palace gates, he paced a tightrope of loyalty, guilt, and fear. Private consultations with the Lord Chamberlain and the Crown Equerry urged caution, yet neutrality had already failed. His prolonged silence had allowed the situation to escalate into a splintering crisis. Within days, he cancelled public appearances, citing scheduling adjustments, while staff noted his mood oscillating between silent contemplation and sudden frustration, leaving the palace emotionally paralyzed. The breaking point came in a private confrontation behind the king's study doors. Charles and Camilla engaged in a devastating exchange, after which she left in tears, refusing to speak to palace members for the rest of the evening. Charles eventually sent a quiet 7-word message to Edward through an intermediary, concise, yet loaded with implication, that encapsulated both authority and indecision, signaling that the realm could no longer endure the fragile balance between loyalty, legacy, and personal allegiance. King Charles's subtle abstention in response to Edward's actions was interpreted by many as tacit approval, though it was neither explicit endorsement nor condemnation. For Camilla, it was the ultimate betrayal. Expecting defense, she received delay, and in protest she broke tradition by refusing to attend the quarterly Windsor Committee gathering, sending ripples through the palace. Charles, weighed down by competing legacies, withdrew further, leaving the inner court to act without his guidance. While the public saw a king standing firm, inside the palace, he quietly unraveled, his silence louder than command. Amid this paralysis, a new order began forming, one that would redefine legacy without needing the throne's permission. Beneath the pomp and pageantry, the Crown Chamber, a long-dormant institution designed to safeguard the monarchy from internal erosion, reactivated. Its convening was unseen and unphotographed, but the stakes were monumental. The Chamber's first act was to authorize a new royal sigil, bearing the intertwined crests of Edward, Anne, and Catherine, officially recognizing them as co-stewards of historical preservation and inheritance legitimacy. Camilla's seal was formally retired, her authority struck from future documentation, and her influence quietly diminished. Edward was granted the title of Guardian of Integrity, reviving a century-old designation, giving him final discretion over royal records tied to succession and ceremonial legitimacy. And Catherine oversaw the protocol gallery revisions, overhauling training, archival classification, and vetting processes, while Camilla was removed from key committees and her recommendations frozen. Even as power shifted, one final discovery reshaped the stakes entirely. A sealed scroll tucked behind a ledger, dated less than 6 months before Queen Elizabeth's death, outlining her will for legacy stewardship. It explicitly named Anne and Edward as preservers of ceremonial and archival truth, with Catherine granted authority under the Preservation Designate Clause. The scroll directly contradicted changes instituted under Camilla's elevation, rendering her prior influence questionable at best. Whether deliberately hidden to protect Charles's early reign or obscured by Camilla's allies, its resurfacing confirmed that Edward's actions were aligned with the late Queen's intent, Anne's authority constitutionally validated, and Catherine positioned not just as future Queen, but as custodian of royal truth. The monarchy, once shaken by secret seals and quiet maneuverings, now faced the dawn of a new order, one defined not by crowns alone, but by silent revolutions, hidden documents, and guardians who refused to let history be rewritten.